What is up, everybody? My name is Juan Pablo Guardin Camargo, and this is the Air It Out podcast presented by Inside the Hashes. And I am joined on a conference call filled with football experts. In my opinion, I got Darren Braxton, Darius Riddick, Avery Collins on the line, and Jerome Jones behind the glass producing. What is up, everybody?
What's good, people? Big Trust, you already know what it is.
What's going on? Matt Ryan for president. And you guys already know Cam Newton for MVP. Simple as that.
And with the mic drop, by the way, guys, I would start every show with kind of just like a lighthearted little thing to talk about. But, over the recent events that happened, I believe it's our responsibility, not just as journalists, but as people to kind of talk about it. And I know, Avery, you talk a little bit about the Blake shooting incident that happened on Sunday. What are you going to start on it?
I just want to say, first and foremost, that my prayers go out to him and his family and everybody who's affected by it. Thankfully, he survived. Unfortunately, the situation happened too. Because of the situation, he is going to be, he's paralyzed at this current time. So it's a sad situation, but it's also a reminder that we still have a lot of work to do. Even if you look at the NBA and what they've done in the bubble with all of their protests, with the Black Lives Matter T-shirts, and even and everything on the court, and how they've come together and they've unified, and even these past 2 days have canceled and postponed games and different things like that. It's like all of those things almost seem to have been done for naught because it's still going on, right? And so we've talked about this on the podcast before, and we need to continue to talk about it. It's not enough, right? It's not enough for you to turn Black Lives Matter into a movement or a symbol or a moment. This is more than that, right? It's literally the lives of Black and brown people are being taken at a much higher rate than any other race in this country, and it's by people who are sworn to protect and serve. I posted a status today. They're sworn to protect and serve, but they're trained to shoot and kill. That's oxymoronic. It doesn't make sense. I have a friend, Tyler Scott, who's wrestled his entire adult life, and he said, it's funny. I lived my entire life learning how to wrestle. He says it's appalling to him how much lack of training, or the fact that it takes 2-3 cops to shoot somebody, but they can't restrain someone. Like, if you watch these wrestlers, the moves that they use, these UFC fighters, the moves that they use to restrain people, into that, why not put police through that type of training instead of, if they're supposed to protect and serve, instead of training them to shoot to kill? A lot of people don't know that. Cops are not trained to shoot warning shots. The warning shot is the first bullet in their gun. It's the first bullet in their case. That's the warning shot, because that's the one that doesn't bounce off and rip through your organs. That's the only warning shot you get. In that shot, it's not aimed to hit you in the knee, to hit you in the shoulder. They're trained to shoot to kill, not shoot to survive, not to shoot to disarm, shoot to kill. And what frustrates me is the fact that people want to bring up somebody's past history or whatever the situation, or anything like that. At no point does anyone unarmed deserve to die. Period. I don't care if they are ex-felons or not. We are not God. We have to stop playing God. We're not God. We should not be choosing who gets to live or die. Point blank, period. It's at the end of the day, whether they're innocent, whether they're guilty, they deserve their due justice. If they're guilty of some crime, let them do let them have their due justice, their time in court. But when you take their life, when you do things like that, it's like you rob them of that. And that's just a small thing that you rob them of. You rob them of their chance in court. That you rob the families of a father, a brother, a son. You rob the families of a mother a daughter, a sister. You rob the communities of people who may be pouring into these communities. And it's just frustrating to know that we're in 2020, we're still dealing with this. 7 shots went into this man's back. 7, just think about that. 7 gunshots went into this man's back while his children were sitting in the car. And this man did not have a gun. I just want that to resonate with people because the rebuttals are baffling to me. Just think about just that simple fact, not statement, simple fact. A man who did not have a gun was shot 7 times in the back by police officers who are trained or who are sworn to protect and serve the community. So we have to remember, they're not trained to shoot as warning shots. So they were trying to kill him. They actually failed in their mission. People need to really recognize that. Oh, he was a known felon. Oh, he was reaching for a knife. Okay, it's 2 cops that I saw in the video, at least. 2 cops can't restrain with guns and tasers and nightsticks. Can't restrain 1 man with a knife. The training needs to change if that's the case. Point blank, period. And if you see the video, he's walking away from them. He's not running. He's walking away from them. So even if he has a knife, why did you shoot him if he's walking away from you? And it's just frustrating at this point to still be here in 2020 after you saw everything. You saw the civil unrest after George Floyd. We saw this. There's still nothing being done with Breonna Taylor. We saw all of these things. We saw the protest by the NBA. We saw the protest by the WNBA. We saw the videos by NFL players. We saw the protest by MLB players. We saw all of these things, yet nothing changed. Yet we still barely hear anything from any of the owners of these teams. It's just it gets on my nerves that we're burdened with the burden of making a change, but we didn't start racism. We didn't start this. We didn't start killing. We're not the police officers killing our black and brown brothers and sisters. But we're the ones. Oh, you guys got to come up with a plan. No, you come up with a plan. You're the one who's oppressing me. It's just frustrating, and I'm quite frankly, I'm tired of it. I honestly didn't want a podcast today, if I'm going to be quite frank. But I understand 3 things. 1, as a black man, you got to continue to rise above. Number 2, life unfortunately must go on. I can't wallow because of the things that are going around, because too many people are depending on me. And then 3, this is a platform for me to use to speak. And I just, I thank for Jerome for the vision that he had, and more importantly, bringing me on as the vice president to be a part of this. So I'm going to use this platform, and I'm going to speak out because it's annoying, it's frustrating, it's disheartening, and quite frankly, I'm just tired of it. So that's all I got to say.
Darius, Darren, I want to give you just as much of a fair shot to say anything that you guys want to say about the issue before we start going into the rundown. Do you guys have anything you want to contribute?
I just want to add a couple of things. Avery touched on most everything I was going to say, but to me, seeing this, I'm kind of numb to it. Like I feel like now it's every day that we turn on the news or we go on Twitter or we hear it. We're going on that another unarmed black man is, gunned down by people who are, sworn to protect the service. I don't know if I can speak for Darren and Avery, but I know whenever I'm passing by a police officer, my heart starts racing. If I'm getting trailed by a cop, my heart is racing. My heart is beating because I don't know if that's the last time that I'm gonna, go home, or if this cop isn't, feeling frisky, or if I move my hands to, okay, he might think that I'm reaching for something, And I remember I remember when I was living in Jersey City before I moved to South Jersey, my parents had to talk to me like, listen, this is how you have to approach a cop. This is what you're supposed to do. And I feel like at a young age, I was about 17, 18, getting that talk. That's a conversation I shouldn't have to have with my parents about that specific topic. But I just feel like the fact of the matter is, you know, there hasn't been no change. And it's, as much as this is going to sound, I don't think we're ever going to see change, because if what was happening before this and the rioting, looting didn't do anything, I mean, like, I just don't feel like we're gonna see any type of change no time soon, just because it's never gonna stop. It's like, I don't think they understand what's really going on. You're taking an innocent man's life away, someone, a father, a brother, for what reason? Like Avery said, 7 times. 7 times. And it's like, you failed your mission because you meant to kill him. You shoot somebody 7 times in the back, you meant to kill him. But then you see somebody walk around with an AR, obviously, and walk into cops, and it's just like, this person can do that, but my brother who was walking away, or potentially, you know, he's paralyzed, so he won't be able to walk. But you get what I'm trying to say. So I just think that I'm just numb to it all now. Like, it's kind of just like the new norm in a way. As much as that sounds bad, it's really just like the new norm. So that's all I got to say.
Darren, want to wrap it up?
I'm not gonna go too much into it. These guys right here took basically the words right out of my mouth. And particularly with what Avery said, I just want to harp on a little bit. When he came to say that Black Lives Matter is just a movement. Black Lives Matter should never have been just a movement. That is a lifestyle. That is people's lives in your hands that the cops have. And if they don't understand the power and what they really can do and what they really can affect, it doesn't really make any sense of what we're doing. They're the ones that have to understand this. We understand this perfectly fine. We understand that black males, black young males, black older guys, young ladies, everything in between should not be getting killed. They should not be fearing for their lives because of a routine traffic stop. The fact that, like my good friend here, Darius, said, you should not have to have a conversation with your child, no matter what the age is, saying that you should not act a certain way around the police. Because I've witnessed people act crazy and nothing happens. But if I was to do it, I may be one of those guys that you're seeing on the news. So I don't want to harp on it too much, but this just has to stop. They have to understand the power that they control, the power that they hold over you. And when they finally understand it, that's when there's actually going to be change. And I think the really scary thing is this. If every single cop thought the way we did and said, hey, am I about to get pulled over and get killed today? We may just have, save a couple lives.
I think it's fair enough to say that our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers go out to Blake's family and to Blake himself, and that we hope that he recovers real soon and that he tries to go back to what was once a normal life. That I don't think a lot of these guys who are even lucky enough to come back alive from a situation like these will ever return to what is a sense of normalcy. And I can't really express how much our hearts go out to them, And coming from a position of privilege myself, it's hard for me to ever really fully understand the fear and just the thoughts of trying to like not trust who the people that are supposed to be protecting us and the people that are supposed to be upholding the laws that keep us, equal and fair with treatment and understanding. And all I can say is that I'm working to understand it. I'm working to sympathize, and that I hope that I can do everything in my power not only to talk about the issue but to bring change from it as a result. And guys, it's hard to transition into football news from there, but I'm sure as heck going to try. So I'm going to start by running into the rundown for today. And the first bit of news that we're going to be talking about today revolves It starts off in Cincinnati, where Bengals corner Mackenzie Alexander took a leave of absence from camp to help find his father, Gene Odney Alexander, who went missing during a berry picking trip down in Florida. Now, Mackenzie was arrested in Florida after getting into a fight with the man that left his father at the berry prairie that he went missing from. But reported today, all is well in the Alexander family, as Gene Odney, Mackenzie's father, was found alive and well at the Okeechobee County Sheriff's Office in Florida. He's alive and in good spirits, and this has come out with a happy ending to what would have been a rather tragic story. We're going to flip it over to Washington now, where there's not one but two bits of news coming out from the capital of this country. As the first one being head coach Ron Rivera was diagnosed with a cancerous polyp in his throat last week. Rivera said that he would start chemotherapy to treat the polyps, and even though chemotherapy can weigh heavy on a person when doing so, he still intends to be on the sideline coaching games on the 2020 season. Second bit of news revolves around the Washington football team's owner, Dan Snyder, who accusations have surfaced as early as yesterday of several instances of sexual harassment against female team staff members, and the most heinous accusation being that he asked for lewd recordings of some of the team's cheerleaders to be videotaped and shown to him privately. Snyder has denied all these accusations, but the NFL has said that they will conduct their own private investigation into the matter. Moving on to injury news, former Eagles first-round pick, 2019 first-round pick, left tackle Andre Dillard has been ruled out of the 2020 season due to tearing his bicep at practice on Thursday. Dillard is the second starting offensive lineman for the Eagles to miss the 2020 season, the first being Pro Bowl right guard Brandon Brooks, who suffered a torn Achilles earlier this offseason. This makes re-signing former left tackle Jason Peters that much more significant for the Eagles. And then to top it all off, 7 NFL teams have opted to follow in the steps of the NBA last night, deciding to suspend practices in order to protest the shooting of Jacob Blake, who was shot 7 times by Kenosha, Wisconsin police on Sunday. The teams that protested include the Packers, the Jets, the Bears, the Colts, the Titans, the Broncos, and the Cardinals. All over the sports landscape, the WNBA, the MLB, and the NBA have boycotted their respective games in protest of the shooting. So much so, Los Angeles Clippers and Lakers have decided to end their respective seasons prematurely, serving as a boycott of police brutality. And that will conclude today's rundown. And before I transition, I just want to give a big shout out to all our viewers on Twitch and to say that Inside the Hashes is now on Twitch. You can go follow us on the side. We'll be talking football, fantasy football, Madden, video games, anything that has to include the pigskin. Inside the Hashes has the conversation for it. So go follow us right now. Now, guys, before we transition into our news of the day, I kind of want to just tackle y'all about what we talked about. Avery, I know you wanted to talk about Rivera and him being diagnosed with cancer. How much do you think this is going to affect Washington for the 2020 season?
I think it just depends on how much he coaches. If he continues to coach, I honestly think that they can push Washington further than they actually expected to go this year, right? If they can galvanize around his strength and around his determination to push forward, I think that will translate to the rest of the team because he's the head of the team on the field. I think that it can really, really allow them to, push them to win a game or two more this season, right? Or whatever the situation, because they're rallying behind their coach. As well, it's again, our prayers go out to him and his family and all who are involved. But again, in addition, Washington feels like a team that, I'm telling you, they're set up. They're really set up right now to have a beautiful story. With the revamping of their name, I feel like they, with some of the investors pulling out, different things like that, and them being forced to go through this overhaul. Then we hear about Alex Smith and the success story of him being able to get back onto the football field. Now we hear about Ron Rivera and everything that's going on there. I mean, they're really, really, really set up to come out of this with a beautiful story. If they are strong enough, if they galvanize together, and if they continue to fight hard. I'm interested to see how they operate this coming season, and but again, much love, our prayers out to Ron Rivera. I applaud his strength to say I'm going to continue to coach. I'm going to and the biggest thing, I applaud his strength with coming out with this. Right, a lot of people when they get tough diagnoses, they try to tend to keep it in house or whatever the situation. But he just said, I'm going to be forthright and honest about what's going on, and just let the cards kind of fall where they lie. But I'm not going to lay down. I'm going to continue to push and fight. So I applaud him and wish him the best.
And then the fight in the NFC East will be an intense one, especially with the Eagles down their second starting offensive lineman in Andre Dillard. Darius, how likely are the Eagles to be in contention to win the division after losing two of their top linemen?
I still think the Eagles are a favorite to win the division. I think, training camp, they're going to have to see what they can do with some of the guys that they have, if they're going to re-sign Jason Peters, like you said. But I still think the Eagles are a favorite just because I have a lot of faith in Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz, to me, in that division has he's hearing a lot of noise, right? Getting injured right before the Super Bowl, and then last playoff series, obviously getting knocked out. So I think Carson Wentz has the biggest chip on his shoulder in that division. So I think he's going to find a way to really win, and I think the Eagles are going to find a way to replace. Obviously, losing two offensive linemen is a huge blow. Losing an offensive lineman in the league is very difficult, especially with how they run their offense. But I still think they're the favorite, and I just believe that I'm a believer in Carson Wentz. I think this is the year that he's going to prove a lot of his haters wrong, and this is going to be another thing that kind of just fuels him and just energizes that team, like Avery was saying with the Washington football team. I think the Eagles are going to take this and they're going to use this, and they still have a pretty solid defense. So I think that they're not going to miss out too much on that division. So solid defense.
No, I wasn't. It's not the defense. It's you lost two starting offensive linemen, and Jason Peters is moving to a new position. The Eagles they should be scared. Period.
They should be, but we'll have to see how progresses going forward. Darius, 7 NFL teams opting out of practice. Could we also see NFL teams boycotting games once the regular season starts?
Yeah, no, we're not going to see any games get postponed or boycotted like the NBA and things like that. That's just not how the NFL is run. Maybe practices, yes, I can understand, especially with the climate of everything going on. But the way that the owners are when it comes to the NFL, they're not as forthright with the players. They're not as communicative with the players as the NBA and the MLB and things like that. If you notice, the MLB, the NBA, the MLS also postponed the games as well. And it was all in solidarity because those leagues understand how important their players are to them. The NFL understands how important the players are, but not to the extent of those other organizations. So I don't see that coming along the same way.
Think that comes down to the players. The players, if they decide to boycott, there will be no football. It's as simple as that. And I say that because that's what the Bucks did, right? The owner of the Bucks didn't say, "Hey, boycott the game." The Bucks players decided we're not playing, and then after that, the NBA followed suit with postponing the rest of the games because the Bucks players.
But you have to understand who the Bucks' actual owner is. He recently
for sure.
the DNC.
Yeah,
so he's a guy that's there with his players. He understands what's going on, and for them to do it with him, I can understand him backing them way more.
For sure.
Well, these kind of teams are more of. These kind of situations are much more locker culture based, and it will be up to the decision of players to decide what they want to do. Because independently of where the contract and the money is coming from, it's a player run sport, and a player culture is much more important, just as much on the field as it is in the locker room. And I can't think of a locker room that has that much more of a rich culture than the Baltimore Ravens, who made the news earlier last week because they have surprisingly released All-Pro safety, 7-time Pro Bowl safety Earl Thomas after he got into a fight with a teammate during practice, which resulted in Thomas punching people or punching said teammate Chuck Clark, the safety, I believe his name was. And after the team's leadership, like the player leadership, got together and decided to tell management that Thomas just isn't a good fit. He's not a leader. He's not a team player. The Pro Bowl safety was released and now is in the air looking for a team, but it doesn't seem like anyone's biting. And Darren, I'm going to give you exclusively this story because you are the Ravens fan. I need to know: is Earl Thomas's career over? Did the Ravens make the right move? And are you still going 16-0 as Colin Cowherd predicted?
16-0 is happening. Calling it now. Just say what it is, people. Say what it is. 16-0 is still happening. We still got guys. But
right? Like,
because Jerome, what the pure fan experience is out of him. Darren, continue, please.
Listen, I'll be honest. We'll probably go 13-3. The disrespect is not needed, Jerome. It's just not needed. But that's another reason why I say we're still going to have a really good record, because you already see what's going on with Earl. He doesn't want to tackle. And he missed too many assignments last year. He still was a good safety. He still got a couple of interceptions. He still made plays here and there. But he was not the same guy he was in Seattle. He didn't have to just sit back there in cover 3 and watch the field. He was asked to do a lot more. And it was a lot harder for him. And from the news that was coming out in the practice, he actually was messing up on the play and tried to yell at Chuck Clark when he was telling him, hey, you're messing up. That's how the dispute went. So I understand why the Ravens did this. The Ravens have a culture of guys that have a little bit of an edge, a guy that needs just a little bit of oomph. But that's not good for the team. It's not good when you're missing meetings. It's not good when you're fighting with your teammates. It's not good when you're not being the guy we signed you to be. I don't think it's the end of his career because Earl Thomas had the reputation of being a really good player. But how long he stays on the open market, I'm not sure. What team is he actually going to go after him? That is the big question. I can see the Cowboys trying to reach for him. But for me personally, I think we did the right choice. I did.
Really, really quick, I want to give this to Avery. Specifically, I'm going to target the question to Avery. Does the Falcons? I know Dan Quinn said he had no plan of signing Earl Thomas at this time, but being a former defensive coordinator for the Legion of Boom and having won the Super Bowl with Thomas in 2013, are the Falcons a reasonable landing spot for Earl Thomas?
Absolutely not. The Falcons' slogan and how they galvanize around their locker room is in brotherhood. That's literally the hashtag they use. It's their mantra that they use every season. It's about in brotherhood. And so when you have reports about somebody punching one of their brothers, I understand that you have disputes and different things like that. We're not talking about that, but punching another teammate, that's just not acceptable, right? Number 2, Earl Thomas is getting a little bit older in age. We all understand that. And we saw the start of the decline last year, especially, specifically in the playoffs when he didn't put forth what we feel is the necessary effort to tackle Derrick Henry. And I don't think it's a situation where old Earl Thomas and the Legion of Boom would have done that. Old Earl Thomas would have came through like he came through on Gronk that broke his ribs, right? And so I think he understands that as well. And so it seems like, and even in that, it seems like that was a selfish type play, quote unquote, because again, we're talking about the playoffs. We're not talking about, a regular season game. We're talking about, listen, this is win or go home. And then the third reason is we have 3 Pro Bowl safeties on our roster already, right? We have Ricardo Allen, who's made a Pro Bowl, Keanu Neal, who's made a Pro Bowl, and
Demonte
Allen
had gone to the Cardinals.
Say it again.
I was under the impression that Allen is now with the Cardinals.
No, he's still on the team. You're thinking of the corner. We had Robert Alford. He's on the Cardinals now. But
Well,
Ricardo Allen's still there, and like you said, DeMonte KZ. So that's 3 Pro Bowl safeties there, and they're all younger than Earl. So we have to remember that as well. And I think Dan Quinn is just at the point where he's like, you know what, I'd rather build up the younger guys than, so we have longevity and longer success than, okay, let's get some immediate potential success with a guy that we don't know is going to fit in the locker room. We're starting to see the decline. So it's,
and a
I think he made
$10 million price tag to boot. And I love your opinion on Earl Thomas as much as the next guy, but unfortunately we're a little crunch for time. But I am going to give you the first opportunity to tackle the other story, the other safety story in our lineup, and that is Budda Baker, the Arizona Cardinals safety, got paid a 40-year, $59 million extension. And Budda is one of those box safeties that's known for being much more of a tackler and a hitter than he is as someone in coverage. He's more of a Jamal Adams type player, so much so he had over 100 tackles last year. If that's good or bad for a safety is a little bit up in the air. Nevertheless, did the Cardinals make the right move in signing Budda Baker long term?
I was kind of stuck between this, simply because I saw an interesting stat. Budda Baker does not have an interception for safety, and I think that you hit the nail in the coffin, Juan. He's more of a box type of safety, right? Like he's going to tackle. He had 100. He had 100. He had 100 tackles, obviously last season. But I mean, the Cardinals felt like they made the right move by signing a guy who's young, who's obviously, I think he's an underrated safety. I was able to see him against the 49ers game, and he was actually balling. And then you pair him up with Isaiah Simmons, Chandler Jones, and different things like that. But like I said, we're seeing a trend with players who are getting signed at a very, very young age. Like they still have a year or two left on their contract. And now these GMs and these player operation guys are like, you know what? Let's lock you up now, so then we could work on everybody else now. We saw it we saw it with Kenny Clark in Green Bay. We see it with Budda Baker. We saw it Patrick Mahomes. So this is like the trend now that we're seeing these young guys get paid very early when they still have time left on their contract. Do I think the Cardinals did the right thing? I mean, yeah. I think when you look at the safety market now, unless there's going to be a guy like Justin Simmons who's going to be a free agent and you can persuade him to come in or something like that, then I think the Cardinals did the right thing. And I just like the idea of signing guys at when they still have time left on their contract. And I think he's a underrated safety. It's an interesting fact that he's not had an interception. And I thought that was very interesting, but that's because of how he plays. So, but he is the highest paid safety, so respect to my man Budda.
Cardinals, one of the teams that have been in the news a lot ever since the addition of DeAndre Hopkins to their weapons stock, as well as having rising quarterback Kyler Murray becoming as a dark horse MVP candidate going into 2020. And the Cardinals kind of seem one of those teams that might be just a little bit overhyped going into the 2020 season. And there's always those teams every offseason that people are going to think they're going to be Super Bowl contenders and beyond, or be dark horse candidates for a playoff spot, and then they just don't live up to the hype. 2019 had the Cleveland Browns, and now 2020 has quite a few to pick from. So we're going to go into who is the most overhyped team of the 2020 NFL season going into it. And right now, I'm going to give you guys 7 teams to pick from: the Buccaneers, the Broncos, the Ravens, the Bills, the Cowboys, the Cardinals, and the Saints. And I want to give it first to Darius. Who is the most overhyped team?
Do I really got to say this? Come on, guys. I think you guys know. Darren thinks I'm going to say Baltimore. I'm not going to. Listen, man. I think Baltimore. I think Baltimore is going to continue the success that they had.
This is wrong, man.
I think Lamar Jackson is obviously he's going to have another solid season. So I'm not going to go with them. But I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. You got a guy in Tom Brady, obviously, who's 43, and like it or not, he's actually on a slow decline. If you look at it, it's not like a big decline, but it's a decline. Prime example against the Rams in the Super Bowl, he wasn't the Tom Brady that he was obviously with the Falcons, or even when we played the Giants and different things like that. So I definitely think it's the Buccaneers, and plus that division, still belongs. It's going to be a tough division. Like the Saints are there. You have the Falcons, who are getting a lot of key pieces back on defense. Obviously, Matt Ryan, we know what he can do on offense. And then nobody, I mean, really, who in that division can guard Julio one-on-one? So I think the Buccaneers are, to me, in my opinion, are the most overhyped team, especially because they signed a 43-year-old quarterback who's, he has a little bit of chip on his shoulder, obviously, but I think the Bucs are the
Just
most
love
overhyped.
how the Patriots fan here is the one talking Tom Brady. Interesting choice. Avery,
Initially, I wanted to say the Buccaneers, but I just feel like I don't know if it's hype more than it is hype as in, oh, they're going to be super successful, as in it's just like, wow, I can't believe Tom Brady's on the Buccaneers. How is this going to play out type situation? I don't think it's really a hype like, oh, we're bought in, the Super Bowl or bust. Like, I think it's just more so Tom Brady actually is not on the Patriots. He's on the Bucs and he's got weapons. This should be really, really, really interesting to watch. I was going to say the Bucs, but I think to answer the question, Darren's going to hate me, but I think the most overhyped team would have to be Baltimore. And I'm not saying Baltimore is not going to be good, right? Like Darren said, he predicts them honestly going 13-3. I honestly, that's actually pretty close to where I had them. I had them at 12-4. So I had them at 12-4. So that's actually right on, up the part where I had them going. But when I say overhyped, I mean, again, and I hate to keep going back to this, they've got to win a playoff game first before I sit there and say this team is Super Bowl bound, right? I think they have a lot of pieces that bode well for success, but we have to see Lamar develop better as a passer. We have to see, better decision making out of him. We have to see and make sure that the receiving core can stay healthy and different things like that. And then again, you lose Earl Thomas now at this point, where again, not to say that he was the end all be all to the defense, because we know that, to be honest, the difference that he made wasn't extremely drastic. I think defensively they were better with Eric Weddle at safety than they were with Earl Thomas. So it's not like he made a huge impact splash, but at the same time, it's a situation where you are losing that guy. So now you have to plug in somebody late into training camp and different things like that, to where it's just like, okay, is this guy going to play at least to that level? So I think those are the reasons that I think that they're the most overhyped. And in addition to the fact that they play, they still have to go against the Chiefs. They still have to go against the Texans. They still have to go against these different teams in the AFC that are legitimate threats to beat them, because of the reason that the Ravens are a threat. They have a quarterback who's dynamic, right? The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. The Texans have Deshaun Watson. We see what the Chargers have done on the defensive side of the ball, and if Justin Herbert or Tyrod Taylor can make sure they limit the turnovers and put up some points, I mean, they're going to be a team to reckon with. So that's the reason I think that they're the, quote, most overhyped team. I do still think they're going to be really good, though.
Darren, overhyped team. Let it rip.
So there, Avery, by saying that they're overhyped, but they're still good. So I'll pass on that and we can discuss that later. But for me, it's really, really simple who's the most overhyped team. They're always the most overhyped team in their division and in the NFL. And they're supposedly America's team. The Cowboys, people. It's got to be the Cowboys. Yes, Zeke Elliott, he's good, but he's been on a slow decline. Dak Prescott, yes, he was good last year, but
a decline?
Last 4 years.
A decline?
His last 4 years, his yards per game when it comes to rushing has declined every single year. It was at 105, I'm believing, when his rookie year started, and now it is at 86.
This man had 1,000.
Because he's Zeke. Everybody's going to key in on Zeke, and now after the season that Dak had, we're not going to key in on him.
Carries. So like I said, Zeke is still good, but he's on a slow decline. Slow.
I
don't like Dak Prescott. I don't. I like him to get his money, but I don't trust him. And then on top of that, you have the defense. The defense has DeMarcus Lawrence, a $20 million player who produces, 5 sacks, 6 sacks? The last time he had double-digit sacks was before he got paid. On the other side of him, you have to think about it. Alden Smith, he's coming back after 5 years. Randy Gregory cannot get off of suspension. Everson Griffin probably their best D lineman right now because they already lost an interior defensive lineman when they lost to Earl McCoy. The linebackers, yes, they're pretty solid. I will give them Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch. But Leighton Vander Esch showed that he's a little bit of an injury-prone guy, and Jalen Smith was more of an injury-prone guy.
I'm just wondering who's hyping the Cowboys up because I'm not hearing anything
the Cowboys
that is saying that the Cowboys are hype.
Michael Irvin does a pretty good job of that on the NFL Network.
He's Michael
Irvin. That's what he
They do a good job of that too, as well as the fact that the addition of CeeDee Lamb has given everyone thinking that the Cowboys were
but that's like almost but that's the Cowboys
fan. That is a hot take for another day. But it can be very hot take for today, which brings us into our final segment, the hot takes. And you know what, Darren? I think you let yours out into saying that Ezekiel Elliott's on a hype. And if you have another one, you can quickly throw it up there.
I'll give you one really fast right now. Cowboys go 8-8 again this season. Everyone is claiming they're going to win the division. Yes, people are claiming they're going to win the division, especially with the Eagles losing 2 offensive linemen. Two starters a day. No. 8-8 for the Cowboys. That's
I'm gonna give you a mild little jalapeno kick to that. Wasn't spicy, but it was actually pretty good. Not too bad. Plus,
if you would have said,
I'm biased to the fact that I'm a Cowboys hater, so you know what? I'll take it. And you know what else? You know what else I am? A Patriots hater. So that's what I'm gonna give it to Darius.
Hey Juan, I think you're gonna like this hot take. I'm gonna take it to the Meadowlands. My man Le'Veon Bell has a bounce back season. I think he rushes for over 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns this season. He's gonna have a bounce back season. He's been having a lot of critics, talking his ear, and he's been going on, Twitter and attacking the fans and talking back to them. So I think he's gonna lock in the season, and he's gonna be the Le'Veon Bell that we saw him in Pittsburgh. So.
The fact that they traded for Kalen Ballage and that he was on a limited snap count because of hamstring tightness, even though Le'Veon said that wasn't true on Twitter, has me suspicious. But I love the optimism, Darius. I appreciate it. So,
still gonna lose to the Patriots, but yeah.
Avery, your hot take. Let it out, bro.
First, can we talk about the fact that Darius basically just stole my hot take from what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago when I said that Todd Gurley and Le'Veon Bell were going to bounce back and be considered top 5 running backs? But whatever.
I said
cool.
rushing yards. Yards. You said bounce back.
Just get it out, Avery.
Rushing yards.
I'm just, hey, whatever. All I'm saying is, And Darren, that was not even jalapeno. That was like
that was a fact.
Right?
That was a typical fact. The Cowboys.
But that's a typical Cowboy season.
Hot take.
All right, so my hot take is going to go into I'm not going to use that one. All right, I'm gonna go here. My hot take is I would say it's mild, but my hot take is that the Bills end up winning their division.
Okay, and one reason for that?
I just think that their defense is pretty good. They're poised to play well. And I think that if Josh Allen can continue to develop as a passer, with the addition of Stephon Diggs, I think they can put pressure on people offensively now. And if they can score points, we know that their defense can stop people from scoring points. The lack of a real threat in the division outside of the Patriots is what leads me to think that they're going to do that because, again, the Patriots don't have Tom Brady. The Bills were right in the thick of things with the Patriots with Tom Brady. And so I feel like without Tom Brady, it's a potential for the Bills to take over this year. And again, from a weapon standpoint, it's not like they got better on the outside or anything like that. So I think, again, Cam is phenomenal, and I believe that he will have an MVP-type season. But at the same time, I do feel that the Bills will end up winning the division.
Avery, that was as bland as vanilla ice cream, my friend. But,
terrible.
That's yours for now. I'll give you mine, and I don't know how much it'll piss everyone off here, but I know it's gonna piss Darren off especially. I predict that the Cincinnati Bengals are gonna sweep the Ravens in the 2020 season this year, and let me tell you why, my friends. I love Joe Burrow. I love the fact that he has been shining in training camp like crazy. The fact that even though the offensive line hasn't been as revamped as it used to, it still could be decent enough for Burrow, who's much more mobile than Andy Dalton ever was. And the receiving core that Dalton has is already looking pretty good. You know, you have A.J. Green, you have Tyler Boyd, you even have the second round gain of T. Higgins from Clemson, who was Trevor Lawrence's #1 receiver. And the defense isn't really looking that half bad either. Sure, Geno Atkins is going to decline, and they lost one of their top corners to injury. And was it Trey Waynes? I think it was. Whichever Vikings receiver came. But I still believe an underrated defense can still come to conquer. And I also believe that the Ravens are going to be in a decline going into this season, because you can have a great season like Jacksonville did when Jacksonville was really on the rise and everyone thought that Blake Bortles was going to take the AFC South by storm. But I believe in what hit wonders, and I don't see the Ravens coming up and dominating the way they did last year.
One hit wonder. They went to the playoffs 2 seasons in a row. Literally.
And how many playoff games did they win?
Right, but you're talking
And
about
Jacksonville had 2 playoff wins the season that they were Jacksonville, and then they
Oh man!
You really believe that?
Are you mad from last year?
We're talking about. No.
That sounded personal.
Hold on. We're talking about Jacksonville, who came out of nowhere, versus Baltimore, who has slowly been on the rise since Lamar Jackson has gotten into the lineup. Literally, it's like he comes into the lineup. He comes into the lineup, and then he elevates that team to get to the playoffs. The next season, they get to the playoffs and he wins the MVP. So I guess that's kind of hot.
They also say I on the rise too. Back in 2016 and 2015, both making it into the playoffs, and then even having your Matt Ryan, who you want for president, to win MVP, and then go 7-9 the following year. Playoff hangovers and success hangovers are real in this league. It has been proven multiple times, and the Ravens are no different. And
Matt Ryan's MVP season came out of nowhere. The Jacksonville Jaguars came out of nowhere. The Baltimore Ravens are not coming out of nowhere. They're slowly building this thing and grinding. And I mean, but to each his own.
No.
Sweet though, man. They're gonna win both of the games.
I do, because I love underdog stories. And with that being said, gentlemen, we're ending the podcast on the fact that I think the Bengals are going to sweep the Ravens. Guys, thank you for watching the Air It Out podcast. To our Twitch viewers, thank you for coming out to watch for the first time. To our YouTube viewers, thank you for watching. On Facebook, thank you for watching. We appreciate all the views and comments that we've been getting today. And to follow us on our social medias, you can check it out with Inside the Hashes. On Twitter, we are at Inside Hashes. On Instagram, we are at Inside the Hashes. On Facebook, we are Inside the Hashes, the football group. You can also find us on our own website, InsideTheHashes.com, and on YouTube, Inside the Hashes. For Air It Out podcast, and for Inside the Hashes, for Avery Collins, for Darius Riddick, for Darren Braxton, Big Trump, for our producer Jerome Jones behind the glass. My name is Juan Pablo Guanin Camargo. We'll see you next time.
Sweep.